The humanitarian crisis in Gaza has reached a critical juncture, with widespread reports of severe food shortages leading to continuous fainting spells among residents as vital supplies dwindle under the ongoing Israeli blockade. Philippe Lazzarini, the Commissioner General of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, known as UNRWA, highlighted the dire situation on the 24th of July, stating, "The escalating food crisis affects everyone, including those striving to save lives in this war-ravaged territory." Lazzarini described how UNRWA frontline medical staff are now subsisting on a single meager meal per day, fortunate if it includes beans. These dedicated healthcare workers in Gaza are increasingly exhausted and frequently collapse from hunger while on duty. Dr. Mohammed Abu Selmiya, director of Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City, recounted to The Guardian and the Arab Reporters for Investigative Journalism, ARIJ, multiple instances of doctors and nurses fainting from hunger, even within operating rooms. A volunteer doctor at Al-Shifa Hospital shared a harrowing personal account. "I have not eaten for 2 days. My family also has nothing to eat. All day, I think about how to find some flour, beans, or anything for my family. But there is nothing left in the market. We no longer have the strength to walk." Local health authorities reported 45 hunger-related deaths in Gaza over the past 4 days, a number that continues to rise as Israel tightens its control over external humanitarian aid, exacerbating food scarcity. UNRWA data indicates that 1 in 5 children in the Gaza City area suffers from malnutrition. Lazzarini quoted an UNRWA frontline worker in Gaza, stating, "The people in Gaza are neither truly living nor fully dead. They have become wandering, living corpses." The UNRWA head warned of a silent famine spreading across Gaza due to the collapse of humanitarian mechanisms, with safe access to food and medical care for civilians virtually non-existent. Hundreds of people have reportedly died, either from Israeli fire or from being looted while attempting to reach food aid distribution points. Lazzarini noted that most children receiving care from UNRWA staff are bone-thin, frail, and at high risk of death without immediate treatment. Their parents are often too hungry to care for them. Many who reach UNRWA clinics are utterly exhausted, unable to eat independently or follow treatment instructions. Lazzarini emphasized, where caregivers themselves do not have enough to eat, the entire humanitarian system in that area is collapsing. This UN official urgently called for unimpeded and uninterrupted access for humanitarian agencies to deliver aid to the Gaza Strip. He revealed that UNRWA currently holds aid equivalent to 6,000 trucks of food and medical supplies in Jordan and Egypt, but these cannot reach the area due to Israeli restrictions. The conflict in Gaza has persisted for nearly 2 years, with all peace efforts failing. The glimmer of hope for a ceasefire agreement is fading after the latest negotiation attempt in Doha collapsed. According to a draft agreement from June, intermediary negotiators proposed a 60-day ceasefire during which Hamas would release 10 living hostages and hand over the bodies of 18 others, while Israel would free Palestinian prisoners. Both parties were to continue negotiations during the ceasefire period to work towards a lasting peace and increase aid to Gaza. However, Hamas's counter-proposal adamantly demanded that Israel allow aid organizations to operate freely within the Gaza Strip, rather than through Israeli-controlled mechanisms. Furthermore, Hamas insisted on a complete cessation of the war instead of merely a short-term ceasefire. On the 25th of July, the United States and Israel simultaneously withdrew their negotiation teams from Doha, accusing Hamas of unwillingness to reach a Gaza ceasefire. U.S. President Donald Trump stated on the 25th of July, "They left the negotiating table, which is regrettable. Hamas truly does not want a deal. I think they want to die." Senior Hamas official Bassem Naim accused the U.S. of retracting agreements previously reached and asserted that their negotiation efforts solely served Israel's position. Israel has repeatedly argued that international media exaggerates the severity of the famine in the war zone. The nation blames the United Nations and other humanitarian organizations for a lack of cooperation, alleging they failed to collect aid at border crossings for distribution to warehouses. This stance, however, is met with skepticism by many international observers who point to the extensive control Israel maintains over all entry points. In recent months, Israel has permitted only a trickle of aid into Gaza, much of it distributed by the Gaza Humanitarian Fund, or GHF, a private American organization. The GHF operates 4 food distribution points guarded by mercenaries. This model has been widely criticized by international organizations as a deadly trap, forcing civilians to travel excessively long distances and gather in large, vulnerable crowds, making violence prone to erupt. Since the GHF began operations in Gaza nearly 2 months ago, Gaza's health authorities have recorded over 1,000 civilian deaths while attempting to receive aid. Multi-dimensional analysis. Unpacking the narratives. The narrative surrounding the Gaza crisis is deeply polarized. The official accounts detail a humanitarian catastrophe, attributing it primarily to Israeli blockades and military actions. However, alternative perspectives and even conspiracy theories emerge when examining the complexities. From one viewpoint, the severe restrictions on aid, particularly the alleged withholding of 6,000 truckloads of supplies, could be interpreted not merely as logistical hurdles, but as a deliberate tactic. A prevailing theory among some critics suggests that the aid blockade is a form of collective punishment, or even a strategy to exert maximum pressure on the Gazan population to undermine support for Hamas, or to encourage displacement. This perspective often highlights historical precedents of siege warfare and the weaponization of hunger in conflicts. Conversely, Israel's argument that UN and other aid agencies are uncooperative, failing to collect aid at border crossings, presents an alternative explanation. While officially framed as a logistical issue, some observers suggest this narrative could be a deliberate attempt to shift blame and deflect international criticism, or even to justify the implementation of alternative, less transparent aid distribution channels. The introduction of the private Gaza Humanitarian Fund, guarded by mercenaries, raises further questions. Critics speculate that this private entity might be a mechanism to bypass established international humanitarian protocols, allowing for greater control over who receives aid and potentially creating a system vulnerable to corruption or, as some theories suggest, a means to control and monitor the population under the guise of aid. The fact that over 1,000 people have died attempting to access GHF aid points fuels the suspicion that these are not merely inefficient distribution methods, but potentially dangerous, even intentionally perilous. Arrangements designed to deter aid collection or manage population movement. Hamas's refusal of a short-term ceasefire and insistence on a complete cessation of hostilities, along with full control over aid distribution, is also subject to multiple interpretations. While Hamas states its demands are for the long-term benefit and sovereignty of the Palestinian people, ensuring sustainable aid and an end to the conflict, critics, including the U.S. and Israel, frame this as an unwillingness to compromise, prioritizing political objectives over immediate civilian relief. A more cynical theory might suggest Hamas benefits from the prolonged suffering, using it as leverage in negotiations or to garner international sympathy, thus prolonging the conflict for strategic gains. Ultimately, the crisis in Gaza is a complex tapestry woven with official statements, desperate pleas, and underlying geopolitical struggles. The stark reality of starvation and death is undeniable. Yet the motivations and responsibilities behind the aid blockages and distribution methods remain subjects of intense debate and, for some, the fertile ground for theories of deliberate manipulation and control.